I think you have seen enough graphs of things going up and down, and now at the end of the day, I promise I will not show you any of the graphs from our more than 35 years of research. Instead, I will do something different, and that's always useful, at least for me, to zoom out a little bit and make use of the research of all of you and plus hundreds of other biogerontologists like you to make some common points of understanding. That what do we understand actually? What are we talking about? So this conference is supposed to be on healthy aging, and we all know what is health. We use this word very casually because we can feel, but when we try to actually articulate it academically or scientifically, that's not that easy thing. Oh, everybody working on health here, nobody has actually convinced me so far that they had worked on health. They start with the word health, and then they end up into one or two diseases. And that is unfortunately the situation of research. We have health ministries, health departments, health faculties. Nobody works on health. We work on diseases. So maybe we need to also articulate, at least for me, making these kind of zooming out principles are very useful to focus my research and to guide my students' research. And that's some of these things I will share with you today. So we start with basically the question of what is health? Nobody has defined it. Do you know what's the official definition of health? That's the official definition by the WHO. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. It doesn't say much actually. It just shifts the focus from health to well-being. Because then we have to define what is well-being, and WHO doesn't define that. So as scientists, can we do something about it? Can we define health? Because we are talking about maintaining health, healthy aging, and we don't even know what we want to maintain. So that's where I have been sticking my neck out for the last few years. Well, that is one advantage of being senior and elderly in the field, that you are then liberated from the pressures of competition and impressing anybody. So I can stick my neck out and share what I think. That may be absolutely wrong, but at least you will hear from one horse's mouth what I have learned for the last 40 years of research in aging. So another way of defining health is to make use of the concepts of activities of daily living, for example, because that's a very concrete concept, and the immune system people have already introduced that here. And that is, idealistic definition will be absolute physical and mental independence in activities of daily living. Yeah? Unfortunately, nobody has it. So don't worry about it. Because that's the ideal definition. Ideals are not there to be achieved. Ideals are there to keep us working towards. But in reality, we have to compromise a little bit before the ideal. And that kind of definition is not much different from the WHO definition, because it asks for complete something, and that will never be there. Yeah? As soon as you start using glasses to focus your eyesight, you have lost a little bit of independence. As soon as you start wearing clothes to be active in the environment, you have lost your independence. So what is then the real health? So real health, the biological health at least, or the one will be pragmatic and realistic definitions, is adequate physical and mental independence in activities of daily living. This is what we can achieve. And adequate also involves a lot of your own mental priorities. Yeah? Adequate for an elderly lady may be just enough to get up in time from the bed to reach the toilet. That's a very serious issue for a real life situation. Not measuring the superoxide level having high or not, or an age level high, or this CD8 plus down or no. So adequate physical and mental independence, which immediately gives you the right to use all biomedical technology. Glasses, medicine, metformin, any other drugs you might need to use when you become old. any other technology, wheelchair, there is nothing wrong in using any of them, as long as they will provide you adequate physical and mental independence in activities of daily living. So this is a practical kind of a definition on which we can develop our research projects and then convince also the money givers that this is what you want to reach in biology. Not that I will study the 8-hydroxyguanosine accumulation in that thing and this will make you live forever. No, it will not. Yeah? So when do we become old if we have to do something about aging? We cannot talk about aging without sociology and psychology. When do you call yourself old? Yeah? When does society tell you that now you are old? And then comes when does biology say that you have started becoming old? So okay, sociology and psychology, we are not here today to discuss that, but those are very, very important factors. But biologically, when do we become old? When does basically aging start? So of course, there can be several viewpoints. So understanding aging, I will just give you the gist of what biogerontologists have understood in the last 50 years of research, that what is aging at the biological level. Biologically, aging occurs after a period of what we call essential lifespan. You may not have even heard of this term, but this is being used in biogerontological literature. There is maximum lifespan, we all talk about, Madame Jean Calment, one sample of one. Average lifespan, which keep changing with that. But there is essential lifespan, how much lifespan evolution has given to a species to continue the purpose of life. That's called essential lifespan. And if other periods terms are voluntary period and natural lifespan, like J. Roshetsky use that term. But I like to use the term essential lifespan. So essential lifespan is the period of lifespan which a species needs to continue. And if you live longer than that period, that's where, in making our lives easier, aging progressively sets in. You can think about aging from the childbirth also. Yeah, there are other ways of thinking. But from evolutionary point of view, I would like to keep aging period after the survival beyond ELS. That is when progressively it gets. Some symptoms might be happening earlier on and on. Well, in one of my after reading my article, Aubrey wrote to me that, oh, from that definition actually starts from the birth. But for practical reasons, we would like to say aging in terms of deleterious senescence-oriented pathways. Yeah, that's Strehler's definition, progressive, intrinsic, deleterious, and universal. So aging from that point of view for a biogerontologist like me will start beyond the essential lifespan of a species. Drosophila's essential lifespan in nature is 7 to 10 days. In laboratory, it lives 3 months or more. Most of mice and rats, essential lifespan is less than 1 year. In the laboratory, they live 3 times longer. Our essential lifespan is not more than 45 years. We can hope to live double or triple the lifespan. So if you live beyond 45 as Homo sapiens, aging will catch you up with, unless you do something totally different about the body. And just a side observation, psychologically aging stops after essential lifespan. Even when you will be 100 and you're not really on the machines, then I will ask you how old you feel. I don't think you will go beyond 45 or 50 in the mind. But again, there's something different. I still think I'm around 30, 32, although I'm in my 60th year. So that's a very interesting observation which needs another full lecture to talk about why psychologically aging stops after essential lifespan, whereas biologically it starts. Then there is a phenotypic heterogeneity of aging. No two people become old in the same way, no two organs become old in the same way, no two cells become old in the same way, no two molecules in the cell become old in the same way. So, which immediately means you're not going to have miraculous single solutions, because if aging is so heterogeneous. Again, I can't develop upon that too much. Third is, which we have learned again and again, there are no genes which cause aging. There are no genes which evolution has made to kill you or to terminate your lifespan. Gerontogenes may at best be virtual. Virtual means that genes are doing something else. So which might look like gerontogene because it has some effect on aging and lifespan, like insulin growth factor, all those hundreds of genes found in nematodes and Drosophila. Do you think they are there to cause aging? No, they are doing many other things except aging. So that is where biogerontology stands today. This is the gist of biogerontology. So in order to understand health and longevity and do something about it, we have to understand why we live in the first place. And life is this paradox. The same things which are basis of life are the basis of death. The biggest killers in our cells is oxygen. Our nutritional metabolites is basic biochemistry and the infidelity of that. And that's what we have been listening here, taking one example at a time. And we will not survive if it was not matched by a complex systems of maintenance and repair at all levels, right from the DNA stability to whatever level you want to go at the cell, tissue in the human being, even psychology and thermoregulation and whatnot. This is what is the balance of life. This is one way to look at what keeps us alive. The thing is, if these things could work forever, we should live forever. Yeah, because then what is wrong with this? But that's where evolutionary reasons have to come in, that evolution cannot afford to make these things forever. One way of looking at this thing is the concept of what we call homeodynamics. Now this is one message I would like to give you and request you and beg you that if you can get rid of one word in your life, is get rid of the word homeostasis. In biology there is nothing homeostatic. Give me one example of anything which is same state, is same dynamics. But we are used to our habits of 70 years or 80 years. Homeostasis is okay for machines sometimes, but not for very living systems. They're very dynamic. And I know when we all talk about our data, we are talking in dynamic languages, but we still use the word homeostasis, which is terrible. So a child is born with certain levels of this balance of survival mechanisms, which is the green space, which I call homeodynamic space, with a red zone, which in the child actually is larger, which then slowly becomes red zone, which is the zone of danger, vulnerability, things can go wrong, is decreased. But for a youthful, healthy individual, there is this fantastic homeodynamic space, or our ability to survive. And what are the three main characters of homeodynamic space? Stress response, damage control, continuous remodeling. And these are not static. These are not static. That's where then you can spend your lives spent understanding molecular biology of each category, or sociology of each category, or psychology of each category. These three concepts that is what health is. Our health is our ability of homeodynamics, and our capacity to be healthy is defined by homeodynamic space. Homeodynamic space is basically comprised of at least these three major categories. So if you want to use the word hallmarks of health, that is hallmarks of health. We have been talking about hallmarks of aging, but hallmarks of health. And that always, and very important thing, continuous remodeling, which especially the immune system studies have shown tremendous example. There's always adaptation. There is a profile, survival profile. Everything which happens with age is not bad. Those things are happening to give you sometimes survival advantage or survival necessity. So if we just focus on hallmarks of aging, considering that this is what is aging and we need to reset it back, you might do more damage. Things like hormone is one example. Hormones change with age. They go down with age. And all research shows that actually lower hormones are beneficial for longer survival beyond our essential lifespan. So these things are what we define health with. And if I want to maintain health, I would like to understand how these things keep me healthy for about 45 years, after which there are no self-destructing bombs there. Evolution hasn't put anything to kill me, but sooner or later things will go wrong because it hasn't made it perfectly efficient, because it doesn't need to. And aging, one way to look at aging is the progressive shrinkage of this homeodynamic space. Our abilities to tolerate or have a stress response, to manage damage, to remodel, this is what is declining. This is what then defines resilience, robustness. normal day-to-day life of an older person is not actually affected that much until challenge comes. So when you measure health, it is under condition of stress, challenge, that is what determines whether you are going to die or to get a disease or not. So otherwise there are no absolute markers of health as such. It is the functionality of these three things, and homeodynamic space and the functionality gives me at least some tool on that. I must rush through too much of things. So aging is that process, shrinkage of the homeodynamic space, which makes you more vulnerable to all diseases and eventual death. And molecular basis of that shrinkage is primarily accumulation of molecular damage. Again, to save time, I won't develop on any particular example here, but there are hundreds of papers measuring damage going up and down and this and that. But I will come back to that finally a little bit. Okay, it's already here, I forgot. That the most important question for biological research at the moment is what's the relevance of various types of damages? When you measure that hydroxyguanosine has gone from 1 in a million to 5 in a million, is that what is causing problems? And if I find a drug to bring it back to 3, do I make the cell healthy, happy? What is the relevance of, because this damage control, stress tolerance, remodeling, these are part and parcel of managing the different types of damages. And this is what biogerontologists must think about. How much damage actually is relevant or irrelevant? How much you need to protect and how much you need to allow the system to carry on? Because you cannot have the perfectly non-damaging situations anyway. So homeodynamic space, which I already mentioned, that is where the relationship between stress and health and hormesis comes. We have already talked a little bit about hormesis, let's talk about that, and yesterday also that word was used. Hormesis is basically this biphasic dose response. That low level of challenge stimulates your homeodynamic space, whereas the same challenge at a constant level, long level and high level will be weakening it. This is the biphasic dose response, which is, there are several other terms used in the literature before, U-shaped response, inverted U-shaped, compensatory, all that. There is no exception so far seen with so-called toxic things which do not have biphasic response. And that has very serious implications for public health, for cancer therapy especially. All those chemicals which kill cancers at certain levels, actually at lower levels, very low levels, they are the ones which promote them also in cell proliferation systems. So hormesis is one area where there is some possibility, at least in my mind, where we can work with the holistic system, the total system, to strengthen the homeodynamics. This is just one example. Okay, that's the only data I will show from our lab. That's almost 12 years ago. Simple experiments. We normally grow human skin fibroblasts, the Hayflick system, which we have heard so many times since yesterday, at 37 degrees, the upper 3. But if you give them mild heat shock, 41 degree, 1 hour, 2 times a week, throughout their lifespan, anybody who's used to seeing cells in culture can immediately say that even at extreme old age, those cells have not become old. And after that observation, our students have measured everything, whatever we could measure. You know, start with heat shock proteins, measure the potassium pumps, proteasome activities, this and that. Again, there are 40 papers published on that. But the idea is that repeated mild heat shock slows down aging in the Hayflick system. And we all know one of the best examples of hormesis, about which nobody has any doubt that it is beneficial for you, is what? Exercise. Exercise is the basic paradigm of hormesis. Exercise cannot be good if it does not cause damage. Elizabeth also mentioned that, and Ristow's examples, if you give antioxidants to people before doing exercise, you lose all the benefits of exercise. Exercise is only good because it's bad. If it's not bad at the molecular level, it cannot be good, because that's the basic response, the exercise or the hormetic response. Hormesis challenges your defense systems and the body tries to counteract, because body is trying to live, cell is trying to live, not die. So, this is a list of what kind of projects we have been doing in the last many years of different aspects. And some terminology which has been now accepted by the Hormesis Society also. The phenomenon is hormesis. When you give a low-level stress, repeated doses, you get beneficial effects. The causative agent which causes it can be called hormetin, like exercise is a hormetin. And the field of study is called now hormetics. Hormetics is the science of hormesis. So there are at least three major categories of hormetins. Physical hormetins. Exercise is the best example. Heat shock has been studied in nematodes, Drosophila, even human studies now coming up from spa therapies and those of saunas and other thing. Cold shock, radiation, all these, there are so much data coming up on physical hormetins. Then there are some data coming up on, or actually majority data are now on the nutritional hormetins or chemical hormetins. A lot of things in the food which we eat is good because it's bad. What is the nutritional value of spices, or ginger, or garlic, or onion? There is zero nutritional value in terms of protein, carbohydrate, fat. They all have nutritional values in terms of being hormetins sometimes. Sometimes they work directly, but majority of the time, things like curcumin, things like resveratrol, things like all polyphenols and flavonoids in many things. Calorie restriction. There's another kind of nutritional hormetin where we reduce the food or fasting. It increases autophagic stress pathway, and that's how it works. Then there are even psychological hormetins. There are some studies coming up off and on based on the mental focusing or meditation kind of stuff, which is very paradoxical. That people sitting in meditation actually have higher levels of heat shock protein circulating in their saliva. The same heat shock proteins which are coming when you are running around in the gym. Yeah, that's a psychological hormetin, and there are scientists trying to work on the psychological aspects of this health promoting approach. Now, what we need to do is, what is the basis of hormesis? Hormesis, as I already briefly mentioned, hormesis is based in these 7 major pathways in a cell. When a cell senses, I am under stress, how does it sense? If it's a protein denaturation, it will sense through heat shock pathway. If it is oxidative damage, it senses through NRF2. If it's food restriction, it upregulates autophagy. NRF2 will lead to antioxidative end result. But NRF2 activation can only happen if there is oxidative stress, which has separated HEAP from NRF. Same story about HS, heat shock factors. Heat shock factor has to go in the nucleus only when there is other proteins are denatured and its own binders are taken away. So this is one kind of a setup which can be used to screen potential hormetins at chemical and nutritional level. And these areas are fully defined and very well studied in molecular biology. Every pathway, what kind of stresses, what is the initial sensor, what are the effectors. So about a year or two, I then wrote this journal review article that if you want to discover new hormetins, whether nutritional hormetins especially, because food industry is very much interested in that, Nestle and Unilever, and everybody wants to have some kind of new functional foods. If we can have better combinations, then how you can start with cell-specific type, stress-specific pathways, and then how you can develop it into a practical hormetin. So the most important understanding of hormetic pathways also that not one pathway works alone. We normally study one pathway at a time because that's the limitations of our technology. We are unable to do it. Like I will give heat shock and study what is the heat shock proteins doing appearing and disappearing. If I take away the food, what is autophagy doing in certain kinetics. But what is important is to study all the 7 pathways. They might have same kinetics or delayed kinetics or even reverse kinetics. But that kind of stress profiles will give you a state of health of a system. Like I want to understand what is a young healthy cell and what is an old healthy cell. Maybe as the stress response profiles can give me the answer. One PhD has just been submitted in my group where that student has tried to measure 7 pathways and defining how during serial passaging this SRP, the stress response profile, changes. In a long distance, one can think about creating digital monitoring system which measures your stress response profile so that you can maybe adjust them. But all these things have to go together. So challenges for developing drugs for health is first of all measuring health in terms of function, robustness, and resilience. These are the 3 buzzwords. which have to be translated in real life terms. Our agenda of scientists usually never matches with the agenda of the real old people. What we want to do is not what they are wanting from us. When I ask an old person, what do you want me to produce something, magical pill, should I improve your DNA repair ability or should I remove your age? He says, who cares? I need to be mobile, I need to walk, I need to control my digestive system, my incontinence. Brain research, which gets a lot of money, cancer, that comes 7, 8, 9 in the category. The top priorities of the real people are different from our priorities. Perhaps that's the reason we are unable to then sometimes convince the money givers, because we sound so distant from them. So somewhere we have to match. So, and then measurable markers of health at molecular, cellular, physiological, psychological level. And hormesis, at least in my mind, is one area which opens up certain possibilities, which will not tell you immediately what was the exact target of that thing. That can be worked out in retrospect, if you need to work out. First of all, to prove that certain interventions, for example, in employing hormesis, will maintain health, or even if you want to recover health. So that is the basic message I want to deal with you, that for healthy aging, we need at biological level food, shelter, and biomedical technology. Then at sociological level, we have other requirements. We can't talk about healthy aging without involving social aspects or psychological aspects. So thank you very much. This is the latest book on the hormesis, which just came out a month ago from CRC Press, which Eric Laborg and I were able to invite 20 people all around the world discussing how hormesis is applicable to humans, including mental hormesis. Thank you very much.
That was excellent. Thank you so much for an inspiring talk. Does anybody have any questions? No. Sir.
So, I think there's just one aspect of hormesis that I was surprised you didn't give any greater attention to, which is that, as with all the examples you mentioned, I think, the way in which it's demonstrated to have an effect is when the stress is not simply at a low level, but it's also intermittent. I mean, I don't even know whether the Hormesis Society regards that as part of the definition of hormesis anymore.
No, that's very important.
Okay.
So sorry, I got it because I knew that I had only 25 minutes including discussion, and I hate when we try to go over that. So that's why. But of course, for hormesis to work, there are certain requirements. First of all, the stress response should not be maximum. Yeah? You cannot give heat shock at 43 degrees where cells give you fantastic response. That is not hormetic. Stress response in our study shows 1/3 of the maximum. So that is the definition of mild. Second is recovery time. All hormetic benefits come during recovery time. Exercise is good not during when you are doing it, it's good only when you are not doing it in the day after that. Yeah? And the third thing is the repetition. That things do not work. You don't do exercise once in life. You have to go again and again. Same thing about fasting, about whatever other interventions you want to do. So those are the 3 requirements. Sorry, if I have more time, I will expand on that.
Well, thank me for giving you more time.
We've probably got time for another question or two out there.
Thank you for this very interesting talk. It's very nice to hear somebody who thinks about healthy aging and not only aging on itself, and tries to extend this to, let's say, clinical practice in patients and so on, which is very important. Now I've got a question, in fact I've got a lot of questions, but I will ask one question about fasting. There's a lot of research being done about fasting in recent years. For example, you got for the 2-day, you got all kinds of different schemes. You got people who fast, for example, 2 days every week. You got people who fast for 2 weeks. You got people who fast for even a month. You got 2 days, 2 weeks on 300 or 600 kilocalories. So, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, this 5-2 diet has become very popular in Northern Europe. And this is based on somebody's imagination, because there are some data from rats and mice where they are combining 5 and 2 and other combination, and you do see that. But the human experiments which are not done by real people or on real people, but we have done work on the human cells in culture, that what kind of combination is most optimal. And to us it looks once a week 80% fasting, yeah, like instead of 2000 kilocalories you come down to about 400 or 500. Once a week is enough for those kind of studies which we did. We don't, all the combinations haven't been done. So that 5-2 thing appeals to some popular science writer, and it has become a buzzword everywhere. But if there is any scientific data, then 6-1 but 80% appears to be doing something good, but that needs much detailed studies. We haven't done all the combinations. So,
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?